Welcome back. It's 9:02, and welcome to EdTech Monday. EdTech Monday, 29th of August, 2022. Now, EdTech Monday is a platform for the entire EdTech ecosystem and government representatives to facilitate critical conversations on the use of tech for teaching and learning. And the show is an initiative of the MasterCard Foundation's Regional Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in ICT, and it's a part of the foundation's strategy to find solutions to Africa's youth employment by closing the gap in access to quality education and advance the integration of technology in education policies and practices across the African continent. EdTech Monday builds on the foundation's Young Africa Work Strategy in Ghana with a vision that by 2030, which is 8 years from now, the country will be a continental demonstration of young people, especially women, harnessing opportunities to shape the future of work and to create an inclusive economy with enhanced resilience for the most vulnerable. 2022 marks the decennial of the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program, the largest scholarship initiative of its kind in Africa. It's a scholars program, and it's enabling talented and diverse young people to lead, pursue their aspirations, and enrich their community. Since inception in 2012, the Scholars Program has enabled more than 40,000 young people from economically marginalized communities to pursue and complete their secondary or higher education and grow as leaders. So, as supporting individual young people, the Scholars Program works with a Pan-African and global network of partners to strengthen the higher education ecosystem in ways that foster learning, opportunity, and leadership across Africa. EdTech Monday is in partnership with MEST Africa, and it airs the last Monday of every month at 9 a.m. on City FM's Facebook page live or MEST Africa. My name is Nathan Kwao, and I'll be taking you through this session. And I've got three very interesting people on our panel today. I have Professor Kwesi Dateba, Associate Professor of the University of Ghana Business School. Now, he's currently the Director of Institutional Advancement of the University of Ghana, and he holds a PhD in Leadership and Human Resource Development from Trinity College in Newburgh, USA, and Canterbury University in the United Kingdom, and another PhD in Project Management from the University of Stellenbosch in South Africa. And he's an astute academic with considerable research and consultancy experience in project management and leadership development, and he brings novelty and thought leadership to all his engagements. And I also have Professor Angela Usu-Ansah, who's the provost of the Ashesi University. Now, she generates innovative approaches to student learning, e-learning, faculty optimization, and research capacity building to improve higher education experiences and outcomes. And she participates in the thought leadership of Ashesi's entrepreneurship ecosystem, I should say, and leads a pervasive initiative on nurturing young Ghanaian ethical mindsets and cultural appreciation. And we also have Linda Arthur, who's a student and a rising senior studying computer science at Ashesi University with a keen interest and passion for information technology. And with this interest, she's worked on projects like the TV web application system, the auto CV generator, the Ashesi entrepreneurship monitoring and evaluation dashboard system, and so many other things. And she's a co-founder and project manager for the She Knows She Can initiative, which aims to mentor and train young girls in rural Ghana to reduce teenage pregnancy. That's a fantastic initiative. That's a noble initiative. And let me bring my guests on. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's conversation. Now, could you share a bit about yourselves, your school, your work in about 2 minutes each? Let me begin with Professor Kwesi Dateba, Associate Professor of the University of Ghana Business School. Prof, if you can hear me, please tell us a bit about yourself apart from what I've read out on your profile.
All right, thanks very much. I'm sure you can hear me, and good morning to you all. Good morning to your honorable listeners and also our colleagues at the other side. I'm Kwesi Datiba, and I'm currently the Director of Institutional Advancement at the University of Ghana. I am in the Department of Organization and Human Resource Management of the University of Ghana Business School. I teach courses in leadership and corporate governance, organizational behavior management, and project management. So this is me. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Let me speak to Professor Angela Uswansa, Provost of the Ashesi University. Prof, good morning. Welcome to another edition of EdTech Monday. A bit about yourself, apart from what we do know already.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Angela Uswansa. I'm a professor of behavioral and social science statistics. I have the privilege of serving as the provost of Ashesi University. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Ashesi more than about me, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Ashesi University turned 20 in March this year, and we continue to ground our students' learning in the liberal arts and transdisciplinary concepts such as design thinking, data visualization, entrepreneurial perspectives, etc. And we engage them in teaching strategies, which include debates, real-life projects, hands-on learning, sustainable service to communities. We introduced to the continent and offer liberal arts as a foundational education, and yet we graduate engineers and computer scientists and business administrators. We are also the first to introduce the university-level honor code system in Africa, and we continue to strive to have as many females as male students in our STEM programs. 50% of our students are on a needs-based scholarship. And in the past couple of years, a few of our students have gone straight from Ashesi undergraduate to doctoral programs at Dartmouth, Georgia Tech, University of Sweden. About 85% of our alumni have remained on the continent, transforming it. One alumni in 2012 served as the lead software engineer who developed the biometric voter ID system, which 12 million Ghanaians successfully used to vote. Another Ashesi graduate with his software development team succeeded in creating West Africa's first cardless ATM technology. The system, I'll just round up very quickly. In the past 5 years, Ashesi has invited all universities on the continent and beyond to join us to learn best practices from each other and to mentor each other so as to elevate us all through our initiative called the Education Collaborative. We've been able to reach at least 100,000 students and about 50 universities on the continent in 10 African countries. And currently with a grant from MasterCard, Ashesi has embarked on an e-learning initiative to prepare students about to begin first year at a university with transdisciplinary tools on different ways of thinking to prepare them for university level thinking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me speak to Linda Arthur. She's a student with Ashesi University. Linda, if you can hear me, good morning. Welcome to EdTech Monday. What else can you tell us about yourself?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and also thank you to your cherished listeners. So my name is Linda Arthur, a fourth-year computer science student at Ashesi. My interest, as said earlier, is in information technology, web development, and database administration as well. So aside from what I've been said already, I also run a small business, hair product business that's called Tori Hair Products on a Ghanaian market. So that's a little bit about me, apart from what has been said already. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure having everybody here to talk education and tech on another Monday. Let me start off with Professor Datiba, and I also take thoughts from Professor Uswansa. Your take on, online learning in general and what your respective institutions have experienced with online learning before and during COVID. Professor Datiba, let me start off with you, and then I take Professor Uswansa's thoughts on that same question.
Thanks very much, Nathan. Well, online learning is one of the learning the world that we find ourselves in. Sometimes for individuals to keep the pace of life and the demands, you may have to be at different places. That kind of thing. So online learning is something that is going to be with us.
Prof, it looks like we are having
I must say that when it comes to online learning, it's something that has been with us for some time now. If you come to the University of Ghana, specifically to the College of Education, where most of our distance education programs are based, lecturers and colleagues there have been engaging in online learning in one form or the other. So for example, you have recorded lectures that are normally given to students to listen and to engage. Even though this is more asynchronous in nature, we still see that it provides value in terms of adding to the educational fortunes of our students. We also are very much aware of the normal email facilities that are used. These have some online aspect to it. So we have been dabbling in the area of online learning for some time. But I must say that because COVID hit, we were all exposed to some of the challenges that we never thought of before. And therefore, COVID provided another solution where it is more synchronous, where you have a much more time-based engagement with your students via video conferencing facilities and all that. So what COVID has actually done is to give us that opportunity to explore something that existed in the past. I remember in the early 2000s, I did a program in one of the universities in the US, and we could engage directly with the lecturers and all that. So it has been with us, just that we have taken a bit more longer to get used to it. The University of Ghana has, as I indicated, has been involved in online learning years back. But I must say that when COVID came up, I mean, obviously it was highly unexpected, and therefore there was a need for the university to rejig its systems. I must say management at the time did very well to put in place a measure to be able to engage our students. I'm sure you heard about the double track arrangement. And the reason for the double track arrangement at the time is our student numbers. We are talking about 60,000 students in the University of Ghana. And so if you want to have access to internet where students will not be disrupted, we know the numbers matter. And so one of the thinking that management came up at the time was to roll out a system where students can come on to campus on site whilst they engage virtually with lecturers. So we have been actively involved in this. And I must say that a lot more investment has gone into the IT space. We are not there yet, but we've made huge progress in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor Oswansa, online learning from the Ashesi perspective and the Ashesi experience, what is your take on that? And how did it happen before and during COVID?
Thank you for your question. General perspective on online learning is that it provides alternatives to traditional learning, allows you multiple ways of expression, multiple ways of engagement, multiple ways of representation of learning. So all students benefit. Some who were not successful in the traditional approach may flourish in this medium, all things being equal. Online learning before COVID at Ashesi was a very individualized approach. Some teachers, as Professor Dati just shared, would actually give the lectures in a filmed form, and students would have to watch the lecture and then come to class and have the discussion so that there was faculty could actually see learning happening. That's the flipped classroom approach. So that was the extent of the online component. We did also have in place the learning management system, and then we had also invested in Zoom, and that was mainly for faculty and staff meetings. So that was pre-COVID. But when COVID hit, during COVID, we had two primary goals: the health and the psychological safety of the Ashesi community, and then equity of continuous learning for the students. And so we paused for 2 weeks, structured and came up with reimagining of what we have. Things were different. We couldn't do things the same. And so, for example, the data we give on campus, the broadband data was not going to be used anymore because everybody was at home. And so students were given data. We actually used the first 2 weeks to train faculty on how to use at least master 2 kinds of online teaching. Then we piloted it the second week to make sure students could get on, we could iron out any kinks. And then we started. We also recognized that the semester had been cut into two, more or less. Segment A was when we were on campus, and segment B was when we're now going to be online. To be fair to the students, we made it very clear that we would regard what happened prior to COVID as one complete piece. And if we noticed any shifts in abilities, because the context was different, the mode of instruction was different, numerous locations and time zones. And so we had that segment B as well. We embarked on a lot of communication overload. Because we were all over the place, it was so important to overprescribe. So faculty and faculty interns and students, we were in constant touch with them, some daily, some weekly. We held town halls. We even had town halls for parents. We created a 24/7 hotline to make sure that students and faculty, no matter what was happening and whatever time it was, could still access the online system. The academic support system included the writing center, the computer programming tutors. We used ebooks. We had a VPN so people could access the library. We used WhatsApp. Faculty had to record instruction, just like Professor Dati just shared. Extended submission deadlines. We lent students laptops and phones. We shipped them lab packages. Some faculty were willing to repeat a class or two. Student life was also coaching and counseling and health career services, all were being provided. Students who couldn't get back to their countries, particularly Cameroon, were housed in Ghanaian families, which we also supported. Some students did not have a place to stay. We provided some housing and accommodation for them. For quality assurance, we had a weekly master teaching plan where everyone would indicate what technology tools they would need, whether there was overload in terms of what assignments were due. We embarked on oral exams and higher order thinking to reduce any cheating or any kind of misconduct, because it was very easy to resort to that. We had policies in place. Then we provided, anyway, I think I'm going on and on, but I'll say this. We had a system in place where if a student missed a class, we called them. We had a master list of all this. We are a smaller university. We have about 1,400 students. So absenteeism dropped from 12% to 5% to 2% to, and then we didn't lose any students. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Professor Uswansa. Let's get the students' perspective. Linda, you've heard the teachers and the professors talk about what it is they put in place to facilitate online learning. What was your own experience with online learning, and how did it compare, or how does it compare to face-to-face learning?
Thank you very much. So for online learning, I'll say on my perspective, from a student's perspective, it has been progressive, right? Starting from when COVID hit, we had to adapt to a new way of learning where there is no lecturer in front of you teaching you. And so it was kind of clashy because we had to learn how to, I mean, from my point of view, I'm someone who is attached to when a lecturer is in front of me and lecturing. So when I come to a situation whereby there is a mouse moving on my screen rather than a lecturer in front of me, it was quite difficult at the beginning. However, as we went through the system, I began to adapt to it, right? And so I think for what online learning comparing to face-to-face did was that it provided a new opportunity for us to, meet as students, as with our lecturers, on a platform, whether than physical, we had to find new ways to meet to do our group assignments. We had to find new ways to, and it provided an opportunity that if you miss a lecture, or if you miss a lecture, or you miss something that was said in a lecture, you had the opportunity to go back and listen to the recording that was made on that lecture. And I think that is what I address it to the aspect of progression, right? it has been progressive throughout, COVID and after COVID. Yeah, that was how I will capture my experience to be. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, let me ask the three of you. First, I'll begin with Professor Wunsu Ansan. I think the question is directed to everybody. So really, what's your current experience with online learning? And would you say that learning is back to normal? And is the momentum for online learning palpable since the institutions reopened their doors? Are people still embracing online learning? Or now that we are back to the classroom, we are back to the old days of conventional learning and traditional learning? Let me begin with Professor Wunsu Ansan, then I hear from Professor Datiba, and then we hear from Linda.
Thank you. I would say that Ashasi's approach has been to first bring us to as much as normal as possible, but we don't ignore the fact that new learnings have happened, as Linda has shared, and that we should capitalize on those new learnings. So the effects of COVID's induced crisis virtual education at universities, currently they are less profound and less disruptive, but it has altered aspects of student learning, as shared by Linda. And students have grown in independent studying due to the distance from their peers and faculty, and have an increased range or change to their cognitive practices. And then the abruptness of the move made it near impossible for us to carefully design online experiences for students. And so that's where we are now, because that approach where we just took what we're doing face-to-face and put it online caused some stress for both the faculty and the students, because it's not meant to be that way. So we are, the lack of the complex pedagogy needed for effective learning is one of the things that we're gradually learning to incorporate in a way that will make sure that what we are doing online is meeting the high quality standards. We're looking for instructional designers to assist us to build this high standard quality in online learning. So I'd say that's where we are. We're making sure that we go back to who we were in terms of our culture, getting to connect again, because what COVID did was it made everybody antisocial. So when students came on campus originally, they were leaning towards staying in their rooms, going to the cafeteria, taking their food, and then going back to their dorms. So we're working on building the culture first, and then we'll move into, and at the same time, we're learning the proper ways of teaching online. And so gradually, let's say a runway of 2 to 3 years, we should have a blended version of what we used to have. Thank you.
Interesting response. Thank you so much. Professor, that's about your take on this. What's your current experience with online learning? Right. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I think the word is blended. What is happening in the University of Ghana now is we are using more of a blended approach, but I see that the approach varies from the various programs. If you come to the postgraduate level, I see a lot more emphasis on online learning than it is in the undergraduate programs. I did a check, and it appears to be that we have about 60-40 in favor of face-to-face learning for the undergraduates,
okay,
and about 70-30 in favor of online learning for the postgraduates. So whereas in the postgraduate regime, it appears that there's a lot more online learning happening, at least I know for the business school that is the case. We also see that when it comes to undergraduates, the bent is more towards what we call face-to-face engagement. I think that the future of education lies in these two areas, a blended approach. There's a lot more acceptance to online learning. Some individuals in the past somehow think that having online experience is not at the same level as sitting in bricks and mortar, but it depends on the technology that you put in place. And I guess that is the future that we should be looking at, a future where you can implement those straight methodologies that goes with face-to-face engagement within the online setting. And once we do that, we will be expanding our offerings a lot more. I think the one point that I made earlier on was the fact that online learning is empowering people to engage in their daily activities without any inhibitions at all. You can be in the UK, you can be in the US, and you can still engage as if you are in class. So it certainly has a future. University of Ghana is investing a lot in this area, and that gives the opportunity to perhaps bring to the fore an initiative for the Vice Chancellor, which emphasizes technology quite deeply. The Vice Chancellor's vision hinges largely on humanism and technology. And there are three components of this. Briefly, I just want to touch on. Okay. One we call the One Student, One Laptop initiative, and that initiative is geared towards helping students who need assistance with laptops. It will surprise you to know that over 10% of our students do not have access to laptops. And this is something that came up through the COVID activities. When COVID struck, we saw that some students can just not afford laptops. And therefore, an initiative of that nature have been put in place by the Vice Chancellor. And we are asking for support from alumni and all other people. Some of you are becoming after Bernard and Co shortly on that, in that regard, in terms of support for laptops and all that. Okay. Then we also have what we call the hotspot comfort zones. The essence of this initiative is to provide sitting areas in well-identified locations for students in between lectures to be able to relax, to be able to engage, debate, and to also undertake their assignments while they are digitally connected. And this is an initiative that we've gotten some support from individuals and some organizations to help us with that, but we are still open for more support. And then we have what we call the Classroom Modernization Initiative. I'm sure we'll appreciate that for online learning to give the value that we anticipate it should give, you will need to have the appropriate infrastructure to be able to provide that kind of learning experience that students need. And therefore, that initiative is to upgrade some of our classrooms and to bring it to the level where it can offer the services that goes with online activities, so that our students will get a good experience and they will certainly benefit hugely in that regard. The world has now become a global village, and therefore, irrespective of where you are, you cannot use excuses as a basis for not having knowledge, and therefore we need to all help ourselves to be able to get there. The University of Ghana is moving in the right direction when it comes to online investments.
Thank you very much, Professor Datiba. Linda, let's get your take on your current experience with online learning and whether you think learning is back to normal. And in terms of the momentum, is it palpable since we are now back to the classroom? We are hearing from Professor Datiba. He says at the University of Ghana is 60-40. Your take on all of this, whether online learning your experience with online learning, just generally.
Okay, so I would say now Ashesi is in a blended approach in that they are coming from a two-angle perspective of learning in general. I would say there is a lecture to student learning, and then there is the student to student learning, which we term as group work. So okay. With Ashesi, what we have now is with a lecture to student learning, we have a blended approach, and this approach applies to the both angles that I mentioned earlier. Now, there are courses that they are pre-recorded videos, and also or the lecturers are joining us via Zoom, but all students are in one classroom to ensure focus, because during the online, as I said earlier about the progression, during the online, during COVID, you had to learn how to, be focused in a 1 hour, 30-minute class, right? And so I think one thing that Ashesi is doing to ensure that all students are, concentrated with whatever course or project that they are working on is to bring all students in a classroom, and then the lecturer, a video will be, showed, or the lecturer will join via Zoom. And it provides another opportunity in that we don't have to be in a physical space for a lecture to happen, right? Gone were the days when a lecturer can't come to school, and so the class is canceled. But if a lecturer is available, but it's not in the same location with us, the lecturer can join us and teaching will take place. For the group work, that student to student learning too, we had the aspect of two group members will not be able to join a group meeting, so therefore we are not meeting today. But with the introduction of online learning, which is a blended approach, now we can meet in person, we can meet in a virtual space, and submit our project or assignments or whatever thing that is due. And so I would say that although we are back to normal, there are still traces of online learning in the Ashesi education system. That is my take on that question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is EdTech Monday, and today we are talking about online learning. We are trying to find out more. Digitizing higher education opportunities and challenges. That's really the bedrock of our discussion today. And I have Professor Kwesi Dateba, Associate Professor of the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Angela Usuansa, Provost of the Ashesi University, and Linda Arthur. She's a student at the Ashesi University. Now, we asked a similar question to some tertiary students, and let's hear their responses. We tried to get their perspective on all of this. Here's what they had to tell us when asking questions.
Since COVID came, we have not almost every lecturer is able to have a class face-to-face. So the online learning has really improved. It has helped both the students and the lecturers as well. And in a way too, it's not helping because it's not everybody that goes to class, let me say online, because some of them will be having internet problems, others they will just choose not to go to class. From my personal way, I think Sakai, the university website, something has to be done about it, because sometimes you have to submit your assignments, you have to write your exams, and the thing jams. So I think it's either they create something else, or maybe they should open it so that it will be able to accommodate a lot of people during.
The online learning was okay. I had a lot of distractions at home because I babysit, and I sometimes have my mother interrupting me during lessons. I'd prefer the in-person class because I get to see the lecturer face to face and then ask him whatever I want, and there's less misbehaving with my colleagues when we have the class in person. For the online learning, I think we need a lot of data, stable network. So if we're able to get a stable connection, the online class is fine. And I think the lecturers will also have to speak to the students so that they can behave better in class, because it's very bad sometimes with the unnecessary talking and then funny comments and unnecessary laughter. Yeah.
According to our grading system, I think it changed from it being 70% for the examination to down to 50%. So I think for that, it helped people a little bit. And also, people also took advantage over the fact that when it gets to examination time, instead of them to have used what they learned as an advantage, maybe they group up or they do in a way like go online to search for something relating to the examination, which makes it so easy for them. Not everyone has laptops, not everyone has these gadgets to do this. And social media has been one of the distractions of students. You are not able to learn. And so a student using his or her phone is going to be more distracted. I think the improvement that could be made to make this digitalization, as in doing this online stuff, more successful will be availability of having a computer lab or getting gadgets for students.
So those were the thoughts of some students. Very interesting thoughts there. Some people felt online learning was great. Others felt they preferred in person. Very interesting mix of comments there. Let's drill down to some of the challenges we see in this space. What are some of the roadblocks to online learning in terms of higher education learning, especially in Ghana? Let me take the thoughts of my panelists. I'll start off with Professor Usuansa. We've listened to the students, but what are some of the challenges in this space we see when it comes to online learning at a higher education level, especially in Ghana? And I'll pass the question round to the others on the panel as well.
Thank you. I think I'll start from the back end. One of the challenges we have is there are very few instructional designers, and instructional designers are those who would help us to make sure that the navigation for students, navigation for faculty, the level of humanism, the level of making sure that the gap between online and face-to-face is reduced using their principles. There are certain high standard principles. So there are very few instructional designers. At least we have been looking for a few, and it's been very challenging. The other piece is, and I'm sure Linda will give you more of that from the students' perspective, is that that ability to join online from wherever you are. And I think I heard it from most of the students who were speaking. It takes a lot of self-discipline and self-will and just self-management. And so that in itself adds another layer of challenge. So I'll stick to that, but I'll add one also. Faculty also have to have the ability and the wherewithal to create these online classes and to monitor them. And so we have the challenge of bringing faculty up to speed in learning the different tools that are available and how best they can use them. I must say that Ashesi faculty were asked to at least master 2, and they did. And so they're still mastering other ways of using the online piece. So the challenge is faculty are learning how to use it. Students are managing their social aspect of, working online, and then the actual curriculum design and input. Those are the 3 challenges I'll share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Lateba, your thoughts, challenges when it comes to online learning at a higher educational level?
Thanks very much, Nathan. Just to add what Professor, we know from research that students who are self-motivated actually do well when it comes to online learning. And also from research, from the ages up to about 30, let's say 25, students tend to struggle sometimes online learning because of the distractions that they have with focusing on what they have been taught. It, however, works a lot more with the older folks, much more, let's say 25 upwards to about 30 thereabout. So the understanding makes it very clear to me that if you look at what pertains to the University of Ghana, there's a lot more emphasis on face-to-face engagement at an undergraduate level. And I believe that this factors into the equation, the level of engagement that may be needed at the undergraduate level will not be the same in terms of the postgraduate, because the postgraduate tends to be a bit more older and they're a bit more focused and determined. So that's why the blended approach is one of the approaches that certainly I believe will continue to plow on. But I also think that one of the challenges that we must also bring our minds to, having spoken about the self-motivation aspect of students who are more driven, are likely to warm up towards the idea more than those who are not driven. I think that we should also factor in instructors and teachers, for that matter, must also be aware of different personalities when it comes to engaging people, because you have introverts, you have extroverts, and their response to online engagement will not be the same. So it means that the capacity of teachers and instructors, for that matter, must be developed to be able to embrace that kind of variation, which is quite different from what happens on face-to-face engagement. We must also mention the fact that some of the possible things that comes to mind is instructors must have the competence of being emotionally intelligent when they are engaging with students online. There are things that students will do online that they will never do on-site or face-to-face. And therefore, students, lecturers must have that capacity to be able to appreciate that kind of thinking, so that you are more emotionally intelligent in engaging students. I think that instructors must always be aware that when you are teaching, you don't know where the student is and who is listening and all that. So we need to be emotionally intelligent and aware and be highly professional in terms of how we engage our students. I think the students that were engaged also mentioned some points I want to comment on. One of them is accessibility in terms of data. A number of students have difficulties with data. I know the university worked during the COVID period with telcos to provide support for university students, but I do know that much more is required. So data, access to data is one. I mentioned the once-in-one laptop initiative for the Vice Chancellor, which speaks to the lack of equipment for some students. I think one student actually mentioned that not all students have access to laptops. So these are some potential roadblocks. Now, we must also talk about the emphasis on group engagement. I know that some of the online facilities allow group work and all that, but in my mind, nothing beats bricks and mortar in terms of people coming together and actively engaging. In fact, we do know from research again that organizations like Google at a point actually realized that innovation was waning because people were not coming out with novelty as they used to be. I mean, somebody walks to your desk in the morning, asks you how you keeping, you have the chart, and something drops in your mind, and that is the beginning of a new idea that can be taken further. So I think that certainly we will have to go with online learning to a large extent, but it certainly will never replace bricks and mortar, because bricks and mortar has a role to play. It takes my mind to what an organization is. An organization is a social entity that requires interaction, interdependence among individuals to get the best out of people. So these are my thoughts for now, Nathan. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Datiba. Linda, if you can hear me, the challenges in online, the challenges with online learning, especially at a higher educational level. You mentioned that, I mean, online learning's become part of your routine as a student. What are some of the challenges you experience, or you and your colleagues experience every time you have to access learning via online platforms?
Yeah, thank you very much. So with online learning, one key challenge that I see for myself and other students is the interpersonal engagement among students, lecturers, and then the university resources that are available. Like, for example, I would say career service and ODIP and the rest, right? So although we are online, a lecturer is lecturing to us, we attend town hall meetings, we go to career service meetings, but that interpersonal, I mean, connections, where if it's an online, if it's a face-to-face, where I can say hi or hello to someone, that one was missing when, I mean, we switched to online. So one key challenge or like problem that, I mean, emerged was that after we came back to campus, as Professor Angela said, from my point of view, I found it difficult to, I mean, go out and engage with people because I've been comfortable with sitting at my own zone, learning, and not really going out there. So one challenge would be the interpersonal engagement. So that was what was missing. Also, one thing is the internet connectivity, as has been said already. So depending on your location, right, you can connect to whatever thing that we are doing in class. And so sometimes people have to have clashes joining classes because of their location, because they couldn't connect with that. But I would say on Ashesi's part, as we are back in person, what they are trying to do is that we are all in the same vicinity, we are all in the same area. Now we can access internet, so you can join classes. You can't have any excuse unless maybe you are sick, but you don't have an excuse like my internet connectivity is no good, my internet connectivity is bad. Right now we are in a setting where you can, I mean, attend classes as well. The next one I will talk about was family issues or home issues, right? From my perspective, parents found it difficult to accept that I am learning, but I'm at home, right? They were like, you are in the house. Why are you not doing your chores? Why are you not doing things that you used to do when you vacate and come back to school? Come back to home. And so it created some kind of confusion here and there that the parents have to understand that, oh, my daughter or my son is in a school setting where she's studying, and so she can't, I mean, come help me. Some even had the perspective that when you're always on your laptop, it means that you're playing a game or you're watching a movie. But honestly, you are actually learning. So it created some confusion among in the home, right? Also, another challenge was the use of technology. So most people were not used to, I mean, these platforms that we use to engage ourselves online. And so, as I said earlier, it has been progressive for me because I didn't know, but now I know. And so wherever I am, I'll be able to access any content that I want to, I mean, have. And also, the last thing that I will talk about is the focus or the discipline aspect of you, the student, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be online. I would say online for you to be like concentrate and pass your online test and everything relating to academics. You have to be really disciplined. If you're not disciplined, you wouldn't be able to attend classes, or you go to class and be like, oh, me, I'm tired. I don't want to continue. I'm this like. So that discipline aspect of it also, it's a challenge for some students, I would say. There are some students who were able to focus throughout, right? But there are other students has to, I mean, be self-disciplined, right? On that aspect, yeah. So that would be my take on that.
Okay, quite interesting. The challenges have been outlined. Now, how do we navigate these challenges? How do we go about these challenges? Linda, let me start off with you, and let's hear the students' perspective, and then we'll get the perspective of the professor. So how do we navigate these challenges that you've outlined and some of your other students have outlined as we heard in the Vox Pop?
Okay, so starting from the point that I left off with family or home issues, one thing that was done, I mean, actually there was a meeting with all parents to educate them, because I think at the early stage of the online learning, people were having clashes with their parents. Oh, I'm in the house, I'm doing. So there was a meeting with the parents to let them know that, oh, we are in an online setting. They are still studying. It's not like they are free throughout. We had project and assignment to submit. And they also made availability that if you're having clashes with your parents, just let them know and then they will speak with them. And I think that thing helped a lot, because I also had that situation where my parents had it difficult to understand that I was still in school and not at home. And so what parent awareness or education can help mitigate that, home issues that come between students and their parents. The aspect about interpersonal engagement, one thing that I think when we're going through the process, as I said, it's a process. When we're going through although engagement was done, what lectures used to do was that it's either they give a break or they are icebreakers to keep the class, more engaging. And as Ashesi, we always do that, like for you to participate in a class is, counts towards your final grade. And so if you don't talk in class, you're going to lose marks for it. And so that aspect of it also helped for us to continuously, engage with that, although there were hitches where people would be drawn from it, but I think it helped in that sense. Also, for the aspect of internet connectivity, I would say that the coming together now on campus and having a blended approach, it is really like, I would say it has really helped a lot, because now, as I said, you can't sit somewhere and say, I don't have internet connection. So if a class is being conducted online, I can't join. Now, she said that come to class, the internet connectivity and everything has been sorted out. Your lecture will be online and will be able to join you. And so I think that idea or that solution really works well when it comes to internet connectivity, because we know that the school has internet that we can connect to. So one thing that I didn't talk about, one challenge that I didn't talk about was, technological devices breaking down, and students have to adjust the emotional stress that you have to go through. I will link that to mental health, right? For example, I went through a situation where my laptop broke down, and so I couldn't submit my final project, right? And my lecturer was so accommodating that he got to understand my situation and gave me more time to work on the project, right? So for lecturers to also understand these aspects of it was really, changing for me, because it helped me to continue with my project, submit and get my grade. Also one thing that we had in Ashesi was for you to see account. So we have a university counselor where you can see him or her for anything that you needed, like when it comes to mental health and things. And I think it really helped, because there were a lot of people who broke down during the COVID season, but with those counseling advices and things, I think it helped. So with this, solutions coming together, having parental, education about children being in a school setting at home, also bringing out engagement activities are all ways that we can mitigate some of the problems that arises from online learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Let me hear from Professor Datiba and Professor Owusu Ansah on how we can navigate these challenges that have been clearly outlined, either from the student perspective or from the perspective of the teacher or lecturer. How do we navigate all these challenges? First, Professor Datiba, and then Professor Owusu Ansah.
Thanks again, Nathan, for this. I think a lot of things have been shared in terms of issues of connectivity and all that. As a country, I think there should be that deliberate policy to really build up our IT infrastructure, especially on our university campuses. There must be that kind of support to institutions. Private universities must be given the needed support as well to be able to develop that kind of capacity to offer the services that our students need. At the end of the day, they are all our students, and they get the knowledge to develop and to help build our country. So there must be a deliberate investment in the area of IT. The next point I also want to make emphasis on is the equipment, laptops and all that. We should not assume that all students can afford laptops. There should also be a policy where students are given some kind of discounts in terms of acquiring laptops. There are mechanisms that can be put in place. The University of Ghana's One Student, One Laptop initiative has interesting ideas there that government can come in on board to help facilitate this, so that students who really do not have access to laptops can be supported in that regard. Those who can afford, they get some kind of discounts to make it much more easier for them. The issue of data also certainly comes in. How do we manage data when it comes to students' usage? There should be a conversation on that. The telcos must certainly come in to provide support to students. I know some of these things are currently being done, but a lot more is needed if we really want to make online learning something that will give us value. I think another point worth mentioning has to be the competencies of instructors. Lecturers will have to be well-trained and equipped with the necessary know-how and capabilities to be able to understand students when it comes to online engagements. Earlier on, I mentioned the issue of emotional intelligence. It's a very important subject matter that I think cannot be minimized when it comes to online engagements. Lecturers must be exposed to that level of understanding of how to engage and be emotionally intelligent in engaging students. I also think that there should be support to faculty and staff when it comes to even laptops. We keep talking about students and all that, but there are some faculty and staff also that need help in that regard. And that must also be thought through in terms of supporting our staff and faculty. We know that the students' experience only does not hinge on what happens in the classroom. It also hinges on the experience they get with administrative staff. So it should be a bit more encompassing. All primary stakeholders in this regard, their needs must be factored into any future plan. But the key thing is that there must be absolute commitment to IT infrastructure development. And we also throw this to corporate bodies to come in to help as much as possible. Their corporate social responsibility initiatives can be well tailored to address some of these concerns nationally so that we can get a lot more value for our students and our future leaders. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Professor Datiba. Professor Onso, your thoughts on how we navigate these challenges?
I'll share three. I agree with all that has been said. So I'll share three additional ones. The first one is for us to either gain the knowledge or get assistance from those who have the knowledge on the proper way to maximize online learning techniques and strategies. They exist. There's a quality matters standards that we should aspire to. For example, and Linda said it, she said, I miss that interaction piece. So one of the things that can be done is on the online platform per course, each faculty member records him or herself or writes a little bit about who he or she is, you know, getting to know them personally. Each student also has the opportunity to do so. The whole point of this is trying to make the online experience as near as possible to an in-person experience, reduces the main challenges with online teaching. So that's one. I just gave one example. The other example I'd like to share is that the other challenge that I think we haven't mentioned but needs to be mentioned is that assessment. How do you ensure that you're in an online situation, the students you're assessing or the assessment that you've been given to grade is from that student alone? And so one of the things we can do is higher order thinking, the kind of thinking that you can't just find when you Google it, or you can't just ask a friend, because you yourself have to personalize it and think about creating, think about evaluating, critiquing, analyzing, things that you have to do yourself is one of the things we did. I also mentioned that for us, for example, some courses had an oral component to mitigate the issues with malpractices during assessments. And then finally, for us to think beyond what we typically see, go online, teach and go home, as opposed to what other things can we get from this technology? We've got 3D, we've got animation, really optimize the possibilities. And by doing so, you're able to meet the needs of many students, subscripts, voiceover, all those different things that we should find ways to optimize on. There's an application called a progressive web application, which can be downloaded and then accessed at the students' convenience offline. So with the data issues, something like that could be done. Podcasts, which can be listened to, like one of the young ladies said in the when you were interviewing the students, she had to do chores. Podcasts that she can listen to while she's doing the house chores. All those different things that are available to us that we haven't explored yet. So I think my three things are finding ways to make sure that the curriculum is delivered in a way that is the best in that particular medium, that assessments and assignments are marked or are given in such a way that we are sure that the learning is happening and it's being measured. The person being measured is the one we want to measure. And then finally, that there's a wealth of opportunity with online learning that we should be bold and courageous enough to explore and to use. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be wrapping up in a few minutes. So let me take again Professor Usuanse's thoughts and also quick thoughts from Professor Datiba on what kind of support instructors will need, especially now that we are getting into this shift, blended learning, e-learning, that kind of thing. So brief thoughts first from Professor Usuanse on what instructors will need in terms of support to be part of this journey. Then we'll also take a thought from Professor Datiba on that one, and then we'll try and wrap up our interview. So Professor Usuanse, you go first, please.
Okay, very quickly, a clear distinction between blended learning and hybrid learning. There's a distinction there. And so we should be very clear on which one we're doing and then provide the necessary supports that each one needs. And of course, the technological tools, the trainings in the different areas. And as Professor Datiba has said, the mindset of faculty on using online as a way of teaching. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Datiba, your thoughts on what instructors will need as they are part of this hybrid e-learning, blended learning approach quickly.
Thanks very much, Nathan. I think two things come to mind. The first is what we need to build well-tuned. We also need to provide a needed for faculty.
Professor Datiba, your line is not too clear.
I was just saying that we need to fine-tune the online engagements and competencies that faculty need to have to ensure that they give that value to students. And number two, we also need to provide the needed equipment for faculty and staff so we can give the best to our students. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Linda, you have the final word. From your perspective as a student, what should the EdTech innovators and university admins consider when they are putting together technology to deliver learning to you and your colleagues who are in the faculties picking up knowledge? Hello, Linda, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Just briefly, what should be done from the student's perspective to ensure that, or what should EdTech innovators do when putting technology together to deliver learning?
So one thing I would say is the aspect of monitoring and evaluation for our tests and quizzes. That will be on the part of EdTech innovators when they are building systems that will support online, and they should make that aspect of, although there are other things that we put in place to ensure that the being ethical during exams and things like that. Also, the system itself should be able to detect that, or should be able to, give a result on that. So that's one thing I would say there. Another thing is the accessibility to devices and internet, and also that is for the university administrators that, as Ashesi has been doing, they should make sure that students who don't have access to it, however way we can possibly go about it. Professor Angela talked about podcasts, and it was really, it's really a key thing, because I remember I used to listen to some of the lecture recording whilst I'm doing my choice. And I think it's one thing that really helped me during the online period. And also, we should tailor online learning to students' needs and abilities, rather than saying that we have a course to cover. And so let's go about strictly to what this course is saying, rather than like modeling it in a way that students can learn, students can gain the knowledge that they are expected to in order for us to be successful in whatever thing that we are doing. So that would be my take on that. Thank you.
Linda, thank you so much. That was Linda Arthur. She's a student of Ashesi University. And we also had Professor Angela Uswansa, Provost of the Ashesi University, and Professor Kwesi Datiba, Associate Professor of the University of Ghana. They joined me today on the August edition of EdTech Monday. Today we discussed digitizing higher education opportunities and challenges. It was fascinating. And EdTech Monday is in partnership with MEST Africa, and it airs every last Monday of every month at 9 a.m. on City's Facebook page live and on MEST Africa's Facebook page as well. My name is Nathan Kwa. Many thanks for listening. Up next is the news update. How Idrisu is here with the latest.
Good morning. Now, some student leaders.